Ladies, gentlemen, and friends beyond the binary, welcome to Step Back Tonight for today, September 7th, 2021. I'm your host, Tristan. Hey, everybody. Hi. I am Tristan, the host of Step Back, the YouTube channel that is on the play button over there. I stream typically on Mondays and Tuesdays from Mondays from 12 till 2 with Mia Mulder, although this week we're doing it on Thursday because of Labor Day, basically. And then on Tuesday nights, I do Step Back Tonight, the show you're watching right now, where I go over the news, hang out with you guys, answer some questions. So, you know, a fun, relaxing evening of streaming. A nice a solid 120, you know? I will warn you that if my connection randomly dies during this stream tonight, it looks like we're about to be hit with a really bad thunderstorm. So, if my power goes out or my internet goes out, you'll know what happened. I go by he, him pronouns, and you can find my work at stepbackhistory.com. If you want to support my work, you know, help give me dollary dues so that I can pay for not rent. I don't rent. So I can pay for my mortgage and cat food and stuff. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/stepbackhistory. Patrons get to see videos early, sometimes as much as a week, sometimes as little as a few days. And the version that they get has no ads. It has no sponsorship breaks. So it's really easy on you. If you have Amazon Prime, Twitch has Twitch Prime, which you can use to give me a free couple of dollars at no extra cost to you. It's baked into your Amazon Prime subscription. You get one every month. Use it on some independent creator. If you use it on me, I'll be very grateful. But, you know, do make sure you use it. Otherwise, Amazon's just going to keep your money, presumably to have sex with it. Yeah. And of course, if you're on, if you have a few bucks that you want to send my way, super chats are appreciated. If you're on Twitch, bits and subscriptions also appreciated. So, thank you. King Cuggy, you're already a patron, aren't you? I'm like 75% sure you're a patron. As for content to check out, my latest video is on the kind of post 9/11 era. I released it about a week and a bit ago, and my next video, which comes out on September 17th for Step Back's 6th birthday, is going to be about conspiracy theories. So, that'll be fun. Yeah. And if you want to submit questions for future streams, maybe streams tonight, I don't know. We'll see how tonight goes. I have a lot of questions. I don't have a whole lot of news to talk about. Like, a lot of things have happened in the news, but there's not a lot that I feel like I can have, like, a really good, like, original take on. Happy Labor Day, join Org, you nerds. Thank you, Jade. Much appreciated. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Just had to jettison all my Patreon subscriptions for this month. Oh, okay. Don't worry about it. And also, new folks. If it is your first time... Oh, yeah. One thing I mentioned about Twitch subscriptions specifically is that it is September, which means that subscriptions give the same amount of money to the streamers, but they are 20% off. So they are cheaper this time, which is nice. What's my Star Trek captain ranking and justify? I'm sure you've been asked this multiple times. You know I have not. You know what? We'll do that after I finish the opening spiel. How about that? Thank you for the super chat, Meow Nyan. Yeah, if this is your first time watching the stream, please make yourself known in the chat. I have a really great Twitch community here, and you guys are great at making new people feel welcome. So please, say hello. Make yourself known. Alrighty. Captain ranking. Alright, let's do captain ranking. That should be fun. That's a good little project to do. So let's open Notepad++ here. Yeah. Very professional looking here. All right. Look at this dude streaming. Yeah. Echobaz, man, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Caught you streaming again. What's up, pal? Feel like it's been a month. Wow. Yeah, it has been a month. It has been quite. Okay, so we're about to rank all the Star Trek captains to get started, I guess, for fun. So let's see. Let's get them all together. So first of all, we've got, and let's scroll this over this way a little bit so you can see the numbers. So let's just, I'm going to put them all in order, and then we can work out the ranking after that. So first we got Kirk. Then we got Picard. Then we've got Cisco. And then we have Janeway. And then we've got Archer. And then we've got Lorca. And then we've got... what the hell's that guy's name? The Kelpian guy. Or no. Then we've got Pike. And should we add Rios? Sure, let's add Rios. Why not? Pike. And then we've got, what's his name? Frickin' the Kelpian guy. Who waves his arms when he walks. Saru. And now we've got Burnham. Man, Discovery is just a rotating door of captains, isn't it? Okay. So we got 10 captains. Gonna count Picard? I got Picard right here. Riker? Oh shit, yeah, we gotta count. I don't know. Riker's not captain. He hasn't been captain on a show, but we should add what the hell's her name? You have to add Ransom, right? No, that's Freeman. Freeman, that's it. Can't forget Freeman. Yeah. And Jellicoe. All right, I'm down for the memes. I will add Jellicoe. Jellicoe, there was this one episode of TNG where Jellicoe was made like substitute captain for one two-parter. So, all right. So first of all, I know who's at the bottom. Fucking Kirk. I hate Captain Kirk. I know this is like very controversial in Star Trek lore, but not the hugest fan of like what's it called? Not the hugest fan of TOS, the 60s show. And also, I can't separate Kirk from the fact that William Shatner is a dingus. So, there you go. Has a country been successful using socialism? Yeah, several. Depending upon how extreme you want to go. But Soviet Union was successful for several years. Then there was... like, there's Cuba today. There's China to an extent. There's a lot of, like, smaller socialist projects that have been very successful, like kibbutzes in Israel and, like, generally the state of humanity for the millennia before we started farming. Like, yeah, there's a lot. Okay. Cuba is successful? Yeah. It's fairly successful. Oh, how could I forget Giorgio? Oh my god. Yeah. Pippa Giorgio. Okay, so Kirk I have at the bottom so far. We'll do that. Oh yeah, Vietnam. Vietnam's also doing pretty well. Picard, I like Picard quite a bit. I'm into that, like, if in the classic fight of, like, what's it called? Picard, like the Kirk Picard people. I'm on Picard's side of this. He's pretty good. I have a lot of fun with him. And then Cisco. Okay, so what's Cisco's whole deal? Cisco's like, he's like the one who like we just finished watching. We're rewatching D Space Nine right now, and he's the one who tried to punch Q. So he's the one that's kind of like the badass, right? So, but as far as like, okay, like Cisco, as far as like, all right, if we're ranking by like competency at the job, like if they do it the way that I would do it, Cisco is not high on the list, but this is more like what I like. And Captain Cisco definitely, I think, is more entertaining than Picard for me. So I'm putting him at the top. Janeway I like a lot too. She can be a real badass when she wants to be. I don't know about Cisco level of badass though. But definitely I think Picard wins over her. So I'm gonna put her here. But I think there's gonna be a lot of people go below her. Archer is a big nothing burger. She did murder Tuvix, that is true. That does lose her some points. Archer is bad. His character is not written at all. He's even less interesting than Kirk. I'm gonna give him below Kirk because at least Kirk is like decent in the movies. Wait, how is Cuba successful? All of the propaganda I heard from former slave owners in Cuba, they all say it's terrible. No, like what's it called? Cuba is a country that has performed economic goddamn miracles, despite the fact that the United States has been trying to choke it to death for decades. It has some of the best healthcare in the world, way better than American healthcare, and it exports medical care and doctors to countries across the world. During the COVID crisis, they sent doctors all over the world to help with the COVID crisis, and they were and to this day are still like I think it's the best medical care in Latin America, and I think like the fourth best healthcare in the world or something insane like that. They have a what's it called? Cuba has a immensely resourceful economy. They have squeezed every bit of value out of what little resources they have, which is to an extremely impressive extent. So, and their people are, in general, better taken care of and healthier than pretty much any average American. So, and doing all that with way less resources and with the entire world trying to choke them out of existence. Most Cubans are happy with their government. Isn't that what they aren't happy with their government? Well, that is up to interpretation. There was that one protest a few months ago, but it seems like that was really just a flash in the pan, and it was probably instigated by outside forces. For the most part, like they just did a recent thing where they did a action of solidarity to help each other out to handle the COVID crisis, and now they're in a lot stronger spot than they were a little bit back because under communism, when the COVID crisis takes over, they just work out all the problems. They don't have to worry about making sure that billionaires are making money off of everything. So, yeah. Okay. So that's that. Okay, so we got so Cisco, Picard, Janeway, Kirk, Archer. That's all the shows up until the end of the Berman era. So that is getting us into everything after this is the Alex Kurtzman era or whatever. So we got Lorca. Did I like Lorca? Like, Lorca turned out to be evil, so there is that. So let's see. Lorca turned out to be evil, but he also turned out to be interesting. But he did also, like, he is, like, an interesting part of the least interesting season of Discovery. But he was still, like, it was still pretty interesting. He was, like, a mirror universe guy. Spoiler alert. But I don't think he's around enough to really be, like, really cool. So I'm going to put him here. Yeah. Yeah, Jellicoe's from the Berman era. Sorry. I forgot about Jellicoe. Pike. I like Pike a lot. I'm willing to put Pike like... Because Pike's going to have his own show, so we got a lot more to see of him. I liked him a lot, though. Am I going to put him at number 2, though? Is that a thing I'm going to do? No, maybe not. See, like, I don't want nostalgia to guide my way. I don't care about, like, stepping on nostalgia. So I'll put Pike here. I'm not quite Picard, but I think he's stronger stuff than we got. I can't wait for the new show. I think it's going to be really good. Captain Rios. Rios he's fine. He's the one who's got all the holograms named after him. Less interested in him. I'm gonna put him below Kirk. I don't like Rios's backstory hasn't been explored enough for me to really give it that much of a shit about him. Saru's fun. I like Saru. He's weird, and he's the only alien captain, which we haven't done. So I think that's got to give him some points. I'm gonna put him above Lorca, but below Janeway. I think that's good. I think that'll work. Pike is now Steve Shives' favorite captain. Well, damn. Cisco, like, it's hard to beat. Thing is, like, I'm trying to do, like, do I like Cisco the most or do I like D Space Nine the most? And it's like Cisco did the whole, like, I'm not going to participate in this, like, casino heist because of racism. Like, that gets him a lot of points. Your only problem with Saru is that he's by the book? Yeah. I just like D Space Nine a lot. Michael Burnham. Michael Burnham is... Actually, I don't even know. Has Michael Burnham ever been captain? I guess she was captain for, like, 1 episode in Season 3, right? No, she wasn't. We came in... She was made captain at the end of Season 3, but we haven't seen her actually being captain, so let's not do Michael Burnham until we get Discovery Season 4, at least. So, yeah, we'll wait until we get to Season 4, because I don't know, Michael Burnham... I guess we cover her being... What are we doing right now? We're ranking Star Trek captains, because... I wanted a fun way to start the show. Okay. And we're trying to figure out where Michael Burnham is. So Michael Burnham, she's interesting. She's like, you know, human raised by Vulcans, so that's cool. I feel like she just hasn't had enough, like, really badass moments, you know? I think I'm going to put her above Saru, but under Janeway at this point. Yeah. So we'll go with that. Captain Freeman of the USS Cerritos. She's okay. I'm not, like, blown away by her. I'm going to put her pretty low. I'll put her above Kirk, though, because everybody's above Kirk. Except for Rios, who's kind of boring, and Archer, who is also very boring. Cisco punched out Q. That is pretty good. Yeah, Jellicoe. Jellicoe's obviously number 1. Best captain. Friggin... and then Giorgio. Giorgio, I think I'm going to put pretty high. The thing is that Giorgio, like, the thing is about the show is that Giorgio is, like, real Giorgio, Captain Giorgio, is only in, like, 1 episode before she dies. But then the show is made up with Mirror Universe Giorgio, who's not a captain. So I have to like really focus on Giorgio of like the pilot and like the first episode after that, right? Like she was only around for a little bit. I hope that people aren't like losing like a whole lot of things. So I think I'm gonna put her below Freeman. I think put her there. All right. So. Here's our list. We got at 13, we've got Captain Archer. Probably the worst captain. Like, nothing. Fuck, no, I can't. I have to put him above Rios. I'm sorry. I just realized that Archer had Porthos. And Porthos is an adorable puppy. And so that moves him up at least. You know what? No, Porthos, I think, puts him above Kirk. Fuck. Yeah, that dog is very cute. Okay. So, Rios at the bottom, he's just kind of, like, for the Picard show, he's just kind of a boring, tragic backstory guy, and he hasn't really had a lot of exploration. There's some fun stuff about the fact that he's got all those holograms, but, like, you know, it is what he is. You're going to answer my last question. What? What is your last question? Should people with disorders that make them manipulative or toxic be banned from political office unless they've shown that their disorder is under control? The thing is, a lot of those disorders might actually not be really a thing. You really don't like Kirk at all? I don't. The only, like, Kirk is only decent in, like, a handful of the movies, but, like, for the most part, like, even, because I'm thinking of, like, TOS. I'll just say that up straight. I don't like TOS. I don't really like the animated series either. And then when it comes to the movies, like, Kirk is bad in most of them. He's the worst part of most of those TOS movies. I think the only one he's good in is The Wrath of Khan. Like, if you think about it, like, what's it called? My favorite TOS movie is The Undiscovered Country. And let's be honest, like, Captain Kirk and, like, Kirk and McCoy's, like, subplot of going to Rurapente for, like, the Klingon prison planet, where he kicks the alien in the knees, but it turns out the knees are the balls. Like, that was kind of amusing, but for the most part, like, that subplot is, like, far, far below the subplot, or the main plot of, like, the what's it called? The mystery story on board the Enterprise, which is obviously the better plot line of The Undiscovered Country. Final Frontier is just bad. He's pretty good in The Voyage Home. I will say that. He's probably, I mean, that movie's pretty centric around him and Spock, so that works a lot. So I think, yeah, he's decent in that one. But, like, yeah, the other ones are kind of, eh. Wish we got the Captain Sulu show. Yeah, it sucks because George Takei is a bit too old to do that now. He's like in his 80s, 70s. He might be able to do it, but he'd be too old to be a captain at this point. He'd have to be retired. So, bottom we got Rios. I'm willing to bump up Rios if Picard Season 2 gives him more space to be interesting. But he's sort of like, his whole thing was, I used to be in Starfleet, but then I left because of a tragic backstory moment where Starfleet did an evil that was that just happened to be an important plot line for the Season 1 storyline. And I was like, eh. So we'll put that. Kelvin Kirk above Kirk? Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll have to do Kelvin Kirk. I'll put Kelvin Kirk here. George Takei was also accused of sexual assault. D. I wouldn't mind a, like, Sulu show that has a recast Sulu. I think it'd be alright. I like Kirk's overcoming prejudice arc in the Undiscovered Country. That is solid. That is a good one. The last movie, the Kelvin Kirk one. Yeah. The, what's it called? Star Trek Beyond was pretty good. I like the movie a lot. So next up we got Kirk. Kirk has, you know, he has his moments. He's got the classic, but honestly, I don't think he's interesting. He doesn't bring a whole lot to the table. And also, William Shatner kind of takes him down a lot. Archer, again, not interesting, but he does get bumped up quite a bit because of Porthos. Having a dog gives you tons of points in my book. I want to be friends with everybody who has a dog. Kelvin Pike. Kelvin Pike doesn't really get to be captain in the movies. Then we got Kelvin Kirk. Kelvin Kirk, he's just fun. He's an action star. It's that he's got more character than you know, TOS Kirk. But do I like Chris Pine's portrayal of Kirk? Yeah, I think Chris Pine did great. Not just a dog, a beagle. Yeah, he has a ridiculously cute dog, which gives him a lot of points. Then we got Philippa Georgiou. Only around for 2 episodes. To be this high and only be around for 2 episodes shows that, you know, that she came on and had a great story and then just, what's it called? Left. And I'm trying to not let. She'd be higher up if I put Mirror Universe Philippa Georgiou in here, but she's not a captain, so we can't do that. She's an empress. Then we got Freeman of the Cerritos. Her thing is that she's grumpy and wants to be more powerful or something, so I don't know. Hopefully she does some more interesting things on Lower Decks this, I was just about to say this semester. We got Lorca. Lorca, entertaining kind of thing with the storyline, so that's okay. Saru, I think he's more interesting. He's like, the Kelpians are like the most interesting thing I think that's been like new to Discovery, so you get some points for that. Yeah, as I say, like this is bad because like I think Lower Decks is a great show, so yeah. Michael Burnham gets above Saru. Michael Burnham's interesting, got a lot to prove, but I think we'll pick up in future time. We got Captain Janeway. Again, fun. Spent a lot of time with her. Badass moments. Delete the wife. You know, has a lot going on. We got Chris Pike. Chris Pike of the of Discovery. Really fun. I can't wait to see the TV show with him. I think it'll be great. Then we got Picard. Solid, good guy, entertaining, interesting person. All the philosophy, all the diplomacy, like all of that good Star Trek stuff. He's the most Star Trek-y of captains. What about Rios from Picard? Yeah, I got Rios. He's at the bottom because they haven't really done much with him. Then we got Cisco at number 2. Cisco, very much my favorite. Fucking hard-ass. Yeah, he's solid. Then at the top, of course, is Captain Jellicoe, who was substitute captain of the Enterprise for a couple episodes, and did a whole maneuver against the Cardassians, so of course he wins. That was a good distraction from this episode. I guess we should probably talk about the news now. But yeah, the first half hour we just ranked all the Star Trek captains. Why not? I literally watched Star Trek right before I came on this stream, so it's in my head, and I've scared away all of my stuff. The other one too is like I was trying to remember if Tilly was captain, but she was made first officer, right? She wasn't made captain. What's going on in the news? What isn't going on in the news? First thing we got here, and this is sort of like a thing going on in my country, because my country is having a bit of we're in a very politically fragile situation. There are two things going on right now. We're having an election in we're having an election in 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks? Like 13 days. We're having a 13-day election. Or we're having an election in 13 days. Just a second, I gotta kick somebody out of my Twitch chat. I don't want to deal with you. Okay, let's see. Tilly played as captain for a bit, right? Yes, very much so. And I like her a lot. She's like one of my favorite Discovery characters, I think. Ensign Tilly. So Canada's in a fragile situation. We're having an election on the 20th. It's going to be, like, right now it looks like there's a lot of funky shit happening. It looks like Justin Trudeau trying to get a majority government accidentally might cost himself even a liberal minority government at this point. It's like now 50-50 whether or not the Conservatives or Liberals are going to win the election. It's almost definitely going to be a minority government, so we're probably going to have another election in 18 months anyway. But the other thing is that the NDP... Have I been hit by any of the huge hate raids? No, I have not. mostly because I'm not that big of a fish, and I'm also not a minority creator, so I don't. They usually target people who are minorities to harass them, so I have not gotten a hate rate at all. Yeah, so the thing is that the other thing is that our Green Party basically collapsed. So now it's like there's this increasing presence of the People's Party of Canada, which is our far-right fascist party, has moved all the way up to 5% of the popular vote. And then we have we also have the NDP that have gotten a 5% boost to their popularity over the course of the election. So even if the Liberals do somehow squeak out a minority government, it's going to be very small. It's going to be very fragile. And yeah, the People's Party of Canada has been getting in shit because they have stuff like one of their MPs just said on Twitter that basically Justin Trudeau should be executed. And then also they're like they're heading up all these like protests where they're like throwing rocks at the prime minister and stuff like that. It's going real great. And like yeah, I'm voting for the NDP. I'm doing canvassing and like volunteering for the NDP here in my riding, so trying a little bit. The other thing that's happening is while this election's happening at a very fragile time in our country's political history, we're also dealing with the fact that Justin Trudeau, or that we are putting in a like today was the first day that kids in Canada went back to school. So us dealing with the Delta variant and everything like that is going to be an issue. And what's happening is that several provinces, I don't know how many anymore, at least 3 provinces, but I think more are going to follow suit at this point, are putting in vaccine mandates. Are not vaccine mandates. They're putting in sort of selective lockdown. They're doing passports, vaccine passports. So in Canada, we're like on Ontario, and Quebec has already got this in place. Ontario is putting it in place on September 22nd, and I don't know what's the deal with BC. But basically, you're going to have to show proof of vaccination in order to do anything that is sort of outside of like lockdown. So if you want to eat indoors at a restaurant, if you want to go to a gym, if you want to go to like a big public event, you have to show that you have a vaccination record. In Quebec, it's an app. In Ontario, they're going to have you showing a record for a little bit until they can get you an app. So until they can develop the app. So that's what's happening here. And it's causing a lot of political friction with the anti-mask people and the anti-vaccine people and all that kind of stuff, which is causing a little bit of political instability right now. So yeah. So that's fun. And yeah, doing that during an election is also just wild. And it was all just this like petty attempt to grab power because they were doing well in the polls. Like Justin Trudeau royally fucked this up and he's going to pay heavily for it. So bad news. We might end up with a conservative government, which is slightly to the right of the Liberals. Very slightly to the right. Good news is Justin Trudeau might have just killed his political career, so. Your campus is requiring you have to self-declare no symptoms online before every visit. Yeah, here, a lot of the universities here, as well as a lot of like school boards, are saying that you have to be vaccinated in order to go to campus. You have to either be vaccinated or you have to take a COVID test every 2 days. Which is pretty intense. But, you know, the Delta variant ain't no slouch. What's my take on the situation in Afghanistan? Well, that's a long story. But, let's say that, the United States tried to build an empire. They invaded a country and occupied it, basically as a, like, way to, funnel a bunch of money to large defense contractors, and in doing so, they royally fucked up the country. And after 20 years of trying to, like, build a country, they failed. And now they've gotten up a lot of people's hopes that they would be able to back up a country that did not hold together, because essentially it was a big scam. So, any good outcomes from the Trudeau loss? I don't know. The Liberals might have to reconsider what their positions are on things. I don't know what that means for them. But Trudeau will likely leave politics. That's a good outcome. I don't really like, what's it called? The next person to lead the Liberal Party will probably be Chrystia Freeland, who's not exactly that great. So I don't think there's any hope out of that. But maybe the NDP will do. Maybe the NDP are definitely going to make gains in this election, though, which is good. Love your YouTube. First time watching on Twitch. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Alexander the Great Uwu. Yeah. The only thing that is, like, a little bit reassuring about Trudeau losing the election is two things, which is, one, the Canadian Conservative Party is really not... the Canadian Conservative Party is barely to the right of the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is a very right-wing party that just lies and says it's progressive during elections. But by, like... You know, that's the thing. You notice way more NDP canvassing than anybody else here. Longtime Liberal MP is retiring. Wait a minute, Cassininity, are you by any chance in the riding London West? Because that's exactly the riding I'm in, and the same thing's happening. Okay. Oh, you're in Ottawa? Okay. Sure, you talk about COVID, so she came in to watch you with me. Hey. Hello, Echo Baz's mom. Oh, she left because it was too hot. Okay. The takes were just too hot. Yeah, so the Canadian election is, you know, progressing as it is. Yeah, so the upside is that if the Conservatives are out of power, it means... Kind of like how in America, when the Republicans own the White House, more Democrats are paying attention to the bad things the government is doing and protesting. So if the Liberals are in power, or if the Conservatives are in power, more Liberals will be calling out the bad things the federal government does until the Liberals win an election again. So, yeah. So that is an upside, but for the most part, like, yeah, you're just going to end up with... basically the same. Whoever wins. It's like the same thing, functionally. Because the only really difference between the Conservatives and Liberals is branding. Alright, I want to see this article by Edward Snowden about climate change. I wanted to read that. I haven't read it yet, so I want to read it with you guys. But, COVID, climate, and the new denialism. So I'm curious what this article is about. From Edward Snowden's Substack. Love your channel, bro. Your content's very pleasurable. Thank you, Cabal's Corner. I appreciate that. Okay. The bump on your toe is probably cancer. Levels of Arctic sea ice are both decreasing and increasing. The world is either 6,000 or 4.5 billion years old. Because you're online, you already know this. Google or Mad Libs, your search engine of choice, is able to vomit up scientific data to support or even confirm nearly any private theory you want. And the truth is, yes, the truth is that a lot of data will be accurate, but a lot of it will not be. You probably don't have toe cancer. Liberals identifying as leftists is ingenious. They can destroy leftism by claiming its name, but being ineffective in mainstream conservative exploitative policy. Yeah, it's how the The liberals have been riding that one for decades. Much screen ink has been spilled over the fake news and pseudoscience that are returned to us by our searches. The information, let's call it, that answers our sincere queries in a manner algorithmically aligned with our preferences. And our community's preferences. Though the word preferences, you might as well substitute biases. Data as filtered by what calls itself the media, as opposed to data filtered by an individual, should be better, but isn't. After all, the statistics on CNN, on Fox, and the New York Times, someone Googled them too. That's what the media has become, someone Googling for you. And yet, whenever media presents statistics, it somehow never manages to remind us that the statistics are inherently uncertain. The field of statistics is literally the study of uncertainty, of possible or probable likelihoods or unlikelihoods, which are 10 out of 10 times presented as the personally applicable percentage chances. The Vegas odds that X or Y will or will not happen to you. What are your plans to talk about the People's Republic of Walmart and the Amazon version on Step Back? I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Your father is swinging farther to the farther right and angrily refuses to listen to me because I'm too young despite having a degree in international relations. What do I do at that point? Ooh, I don't... I hear you. A lot of times people are becoming radicalized because of shit they're reading on the internet. Kind of what we're seeing here. But I mean, you could always just I don't know, it's hard to answer because your dad's just dismissing you because of your age. When, why don't you get this person, why don't you get him to justify one of his positions? I don't know. Hello, Rebecca. Hello from Ohio. Nice. All right. For many of us, to read the daily news is to assess our personal risk levels, and yet we rarely recall, and the media never mentions, that the true challenge is not to enumerate the risk, but to live with it. To stake out the resilient middle ground between denying danger altogether and, say, refusing to wear a mask in a crowded bus or train, and finding nothing but danger everywhere, and, say, wearing a mask and gloves when alone in the middle of the woods. The way we assess risk is inextricable from the way we process fear. And it is one of the many factors that determines our paranoia and susceptibility to conspiracy. Anti-vaxxers fear the vaccine, which saves lives, more than the disease, which ends or impairs them. Climate change-denying politicians fear the economic consequences of climate adaptation more than the end of the world, which, might have some impact on the portfolio. Hey, thank you for the $2 super chat. Can you read my last two comments? Let's see. As an American, I feel bad this trend is spreading outside the country. I'm sorry the Americans' ability to agree with small petty things have spread to Canada. This is true. Canada always gets America's political culture just a few years late. That's our trick. Bo the fifth column might have a better answer. All right. One of the more interesting and urgent questions is for me is how to deal with good research that also happens to be bad news, especially when it comes to COVID and the changes to our climate. Coronavirus variants are multiplying, sea levels and temperatures are rising, unseasonable storms are more powerful and frequent than ever before, unprecedented wildfires are spreading, and, unless there's an immediate, rapid, and large-scale reduction in climate gas emissions, limiting warming to close to 1.5 or even 2 degrees Celsius will be beyond reach. If you don't want to hear about this stuff, you have a choice. You can either look at the other side's data that says the opposite, or you can toss your phone into the ocean, which is littering. When we decide the situation is so bad that there's nothing to be done, we succumb to a kind of civic paralysis, an overwhelming concatenation of negativity communicated as constantly unfolding catastrophe, leading even the most conspiracy immune to apathy and willful ignorance. And now, here's the baddest news. It leads us into apathy and willful ignorance whether or not we believe the science. Take climate scientist Stephen Chu's nihilistic troika. 1. People who accept climate change and think it's caused by humans, people who accept climate change and think it's caused by nature, or people who don't accept climate change at all. What all these people have in common? They can all usually agree on the fact that nothing can be done. With COVID-19 persisting into 21, and this fall marking the second anniversary with our new lives, this mutant strain of science denialism has become its own pandemic, one that leaves us in denial about our ability to implement change. Hey, SB from Washington, or from WA, Australia. Is that Western Australia? The state of Western Australia? Well, hello, friends. Good morning to you. Can you read any 2 comments sexily? Well, let me try. Let's see what's a good one. If that's true, you should stock up on some horse paste. It's going to be valuable in Canada in a few years. So that's a good one. It's another one I can read sexily. Try to find someone memeing around. Oh, that's very not sexy. I'll do this. I'm gonna do this. I'm petty as shit. All right. Scroll up pretty hard to find something. Ah, you'd think they'd hit you because you're a communist? And they've hit some friend of mine with an average of just a few viewers. I don't know. All right. Hopefully that worked. My conservative parents think that COVID is God's way of calling us sinful. Oh yeah, I don't even know how to have a conversation at that point. Do you ever watch Bo the Fifth Column? If so, what do you think about his takes as a historian? I haven't watched that many episodes. I haven't seen that many videos of Bo's, to be honest. Those people argue so vehemently, it's frustrating. By the way, read this on Sexily, Tristan. All right, there we go. Let's continue with the Edward Snowden article, shall we? Oh, that is the end of the article. Okay. Well, there you go. Got it. This is true. This comes up in a lot of things. Like, not only is there like kind of like a doomerist thing, it kind of reminds me of a lot of like Marxist Leninists. Like, I always find when you go to like direct action type things, or any sort of like protest, or any sort of thing that's not just like holding up signs in the street, but anything that's like giving food away or doing like active anti-fascist activity. You go to any of those things and it's all anarchists, and there's no Marxists there. The Marxists are busy criticizing you on Twitter. Anyways, that there's like this whole thing about like how that there are a lot of people who are like on the radical left who don't participate in any sort of political action. Like they don't get involved with any sort of like local stuff. They don't get involved in elections or anything like that because they really don't give a shit about like anything that would make people's lives better under the current circumstances that we're in. And basically, almost like the way that Christians talk about the rapture, hold off their work for the revolution, whatever the revolution ends up being. And in many ways, it seems like it's an excuse for inaction rather than a actual use of action. They're waiting for the next 1917 revolution. So food not bombs is not a thing that is below them. I think that Bo's best takes are on media, psyops, individual freedom, and community networking. Maybe. I heard people were mad at Bo recently. I don't know. It's Twitter, and I don't really like to look into what people are. I don't really look into what drama is going on with them. But yeah, I just thought I remember people were talking about him recently. I think you were talking about it in the Discord, the Step Back Discord. How do you feel about the idea that the revolution isn't an event but a way to live? That's very anarchisty. That's very what's it called? That reminds me a lot of you can't see in the picture here, but Emma Goldman, who was an anarchist activist in the early 20th century, who very much was like like live the revolution, like revolutionary part of like love, do love in a revolutionary way, do like revolution is in music, it's in culture, it's in community, it's in like every aspect of your life, and I like that a lot. Yeah. The other thing that happened this week is the Supreme Court case in Texas. Or should I say lack of a Supreme Court case in Texas. This is the big, like, I don't have a whole lot to say on this, but basically what happened is, if you think about the U.S. Supreme Court as the ultimate appeals court, the Supreme Court chose to not address a abortion ban in Texas that essentially banned pregnancy or banned abortion at a point where at a point in pregnancy where most people don't know they're pregnant at that point. So they did that. So basically they functionally banned abortion in Texas. And because the Supreme Court didn't see it, like if it was any other appeals court, it gets bounced down to the decision of the court above, below it, which approved of it. So now Texas is has functionally banned abortion. And because of that precedent, there's going to be a whole bunch of like conservative states that are, following up. And this is my part about that. So that's an aspect. Yeah. But other than that, like what's happening is a severe restriction on the human rights of pregnant people in Texas, and it's going to create a whole lot of births that could be prevented, and it's going to result in a lot of people fucking up their lives. It's going to result in a civil society that's going to be overburdened by an influx of children in, like, say, the foster care system or through the adoption system, and it's going to cause a lot of trouble. It's going to be pretty brutal. And that is not good. But like the thing is, I don't have anything smarter to say on it. Like everybody's pretty much said what needs to be said. This is a terrible thing. It's a huge curtailment of pregnant people with people who can get pregnant's rights, and now it's going to ruin a lot of people's lives, including the people who are the children who are going to be born under it. Because one of the things that the pro-life people don't seem to give a shit about is what happens to those children after they're born. It's really more of a more forced birth program than it is an actual, like, it's a forced birth program rather than a pro-life type of argument. Yeah, what's it called? Romania did ban abortion, and it caused a horrible situation. Found the Bo video, can't link it, but it's the morning routine and plot holes one from earlier today. Well, thank you for the $5 super chat, Jaden. Yeah, if you want to check out that, I guess to talk about is about convincing people or what. Anyways, I didn't want to leave this on the table, but yeah, this is gonna be rough. And yeah, this tweet by Natalie Reed, pretty important to kind of describe what's going on here, because a lot of liberals will be under the impression that that history is like this linear arc towards justice, like the whole like thing that Martin Luther King said. But really, like, it's a myth. The idea that there is this narrative of humanitarian progress is not really true. As Natalie says here, shit can and frequently does get worse instead of better. So, yeah. You're sure that Texas is going to abolish rape? Oh my goodness. Philosophy 2 was right to call anti-abortion state-enforced pregnancy. Yeah. The thing is, people have been aborting fetuses forever. You know, they're like, whether it was like, you know, the moon tea or whatever, not moon tea, that's Game of Thrones. But if you drink, like there were like always like herbs and stuff like that people would take to try and cause abortions. And when there wasn't readily available abortions, there was widespread infanticide, which I feel like is much worse. So, yeah. Even like, you know, like, even in like the 1920s when abortion was illegal, there were like, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge uses for like Lysol and stuff like that for abortion, which was extremely dangerous. And many women, many people died trying to abort pregnancies. So, yeah. It's pretty bad. This, people are now old enough that they don't remember what it was like before abortion was made widespread legal, and they're going to see just how bad it could get. Or, more likely, a lot of people are going to leave the state to get their abortions, or, barring that, they're going to turn to, yeah, it's going to get ugly. Because, like, what's it called? Legal abortions and safe abortions, and also good sex education and what's it called? Birth control measures. That is what stops abortions. Birth control and sexual education. Just banning abortion isn't really going to stop the amount of abortions that happen. It's just going to make them illegal and more dangerous. What's my favorite Emma Goldman quote? You have opened up a new corridor of anarchism for me. I just want to thank you. Awesome. My favorite Emma Goldman quote, I think that the best one is, she's the person who said, if I can't dance to it, it's not my revolution. Which I think sums up a lot of Emma Goldman's, like, stance on like kind of living the revolution and anarchist praxis. But yeah, but also and it's very pithy and short, you know. If I can't dance, I don't want to be part of your revolution. That's it. I also do like the most violent element in society is ignorance. That's pretty good. Or yeah, someone said it requires less mental effort to condemn than to think. Damn. Fucking queen. I have an herbal book called Herbs and Things by Jeannie Rose that was written in the mid-'60s. It's pretty hippie stuff, and it's interesting. It has some herbal abortive recipes published prior to Roe v. Wade. Yep. But talking about sex makes conservatives feel icky. Can't they just ruin everyone's life instead? See, here's the thing about abortion, too, in American history specifically, is that, like, and we don't talk about this very much, but, like, abortion, when Roe v. Wade happened, like, we think of Roe v. Wade as a huge Supreme Court decision because of the massive impact it had on America. But, like, when Roe v. Wade actually passed, it wasn't that big of a deal at the time. The reason is because most Americans did not care about abortions. It wasn't a thing people talked about very often. And really the only people who were outspoken against it were Catholics. But then the sort of Catholic anti-abortion people started to make common cause with evangelical Protestants who really didn't care about abortion, but were very up in arms about the desegregation of Christian schools. And so in the 1970s, they sort of worked together to build a coalition of sort of the religious right. And in the 1980s, basically, like, intentionally stirred into the conversation the whole, like, you know, pro-life position, and turned people from not really caring about abortion that much to being extremely against abortion to the point where they, like, you know, where people murder abortion doctors in America. It's, like, actually dangerous to be a doctor who, you know, performs abortions in the United States. And, yeah. That is something that was astroturfed by a handful of religious organizations and turned into a heated issue, kind of in the same way that critical race theory was this year. And they just did it as a project for like 40 years, and they just succeeded now. So, yeah. It didn't really start that way, but it sure ended that way. Just to show. A political project, if it's focused, can change a lot of people. All right. Oh, yeah, and then next up we got, in horse paste news, this whole story about Oklahoma ERs are so backed up with people overdosing on horse paste that the victims of gunshots are having to wait to be treated. Isn't that something? Isn't that fun? Don't you feel fun? Doesn't that feel great? In Oklahoma, so many people are eating the horse paste because Joe Rogan and Alex Jones and now I'm learning Peter Coffin told them to eat horse paste. And so many people are doing it that are eating this like horse paste designed for freaking 1,200-pound horses. Are first of all not helping themselves with COVID because, you know, horse paste doesn't help COVID at all. There was like one study that tried to make the connection that was eventually repealed for being basically fraud. And now people are eating this shit and like basically poisoning themselves, adding to an already overtaxed hospital and healthcare system. To the point where now gunshot victims have to wait to be treated because there's too many people who are shitting their fucking guts out because of fucking horse paste. And this is in the and like this is Oklahoma. I can imagine this shit is also pretty bad in places like Louisiana, you know, the state that just got hit with a fucking massive hurricane that like did a whole bunch of destruction. Yeah. The horse paste thing is mainstream conservative now. It's been recommended on several Fox shows, including Tucker Carlson. Oh my god. Shocked to see Dragon Con happening last weekend in Georgia. They have 3 times the relative caseload that Ontario had when we had a stay-at-home order. Yeah. It seems that compared, like, Canada is, like, you know, locking down and doing stuff. America just seems to have just given up. Like, they to them, COVID won. They're just letting it win now. Now it's killing extra people because now they're killing people who aren't vaccinated and killing the people who aren't vaccinated but think that they're making themselves immune by eating a thing that's designed for getting rid of tapeworms in livestock. So, yeah. And, of course, the fucking Pope of Dumbasses himself got COVID this week. And, made this fucking video.
Got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds. Monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything. Got tested, and turns out I got COVID.
Yeah. And when the Pope of dumb people starts talking about the horse paste, they're gone. Just waiting for the U.S. to force me shut down again and cause a huge mess from the irrational backlash. Yeah, it's gonna be awful. You have Crohn's disease, and this makes you have this dumb stuff gives you diarrhea cramps. Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks. I really hope that my stream doesn't give you diarrhea. That would be a not desired outcome for my stream. I'm just gonna put out there now that I never intend for any of my streams to give people diarrhea. That's a Tristan guarantee. Don't dismiss the guy out of hand. Amber Frost was right. He's almost a perfect representation of the U.S. at large. Okay, I know that. I mean, I don't dismiss him. I don't think that I think that this is terrible. The fact that this guy is taking horse paste for his for COVID on top of a whole bunch of other medications, because the guy's worth like $100 million or whatever, he's going to be fine. You know, he's going to get all the best medicine. He'll be fine. He's going to get out of this all right. And then he's going to walk away and say that horse paste cured his COVID, and it's just going to get everybody to poison themselves again. It sucks. Isn't there a good chance that Joe Rogan will not recover? I don't know. Joe Rogan's got way too much money. He can like afford that like Regeneron shit and stuff. So I don't know. Like he's so rich that he might be able to just buy himself a new pair of lungs. I don't know. Peter Coffin's on the ivermectin bandwagon. Yes, they are. So then there's this, which maybe is my favorite meme from the week. I love that for some reason this week Animorphs memes have just become like mainstream. That makes me happy. And then this is just my favorite of them this week. Just gonna stay there for a while because this is too much fun. So yeah, on top of Texas banning abortion, and everybody is fucking poisoning themselves on livestock medicine. On top of that, New York City got fucking flooded with water. So I guess if it was flooded with anything else, it'd be worse. But yeah, it got flooded, caused like massive disruption, lots of destruction in a huge city, and yeah, just the whole like really pressing need to deal with climate change like yesterday is very apparent. So this is New York, as you can see, just absolutely buried. And there's like a lot of basement apartments that were just completely underwater. And yeah, just I can't even imagine how much damage was done. But again, like the Texas abortion thing, it's like this is a news story that I couldn't not talk about. But it's also just, I don't know. Like, it's I don't have much to comment on it except for this is bad, and like this is yet another reason why we need to be doing stuff about climate change. Something like about Animorphs, the author is totally pro-LGBT. Have your kids read it, not Harry Potter. Oh yeah, K.A. Applegate, freaking awesome. I actually heard that K.A. Applegate, this was sort of like her agent or something like that, was testing the waters on Twitter about the possibility of like, what if K.A. wrote some follow-ups to Animorphs that were designed for a more adult audience that sort of take place with the same characters several decades later. And I was like, please do this. I would like this so much. Do you know about JJ McCulley? He's a Canadian conservative YouTuber, but I love you both. I mean, there's a lot of... I know of him. I don't know many of his takes except for the fact that he is kind of a fucking shitlord. Especially, he's an English supremacist, which I freaking hate. Oh, you're looking at my DMs? Jeez. What did I pass off? Yeah, I'm looking forward. I might. I mean, I think they're for kids, so I don't know if I'd read them again, but they were good. They were a big part of my my childhood. So, yeah. And I guess now we could get to the questions. That was literally all the news, but I guess we're like, an hour and 15 minutes. Spent a lot of time doing the, what's it called? Doing the captain, ranking all the captains, so that's good. Do you mean by English culture or just the language? Yeah, the guy is, JJ McCullough has openly said that he basically hates French people, and he doesn't think that French should be an official language of Canada, and he, dismissed dismissed a lot of stuff about the validity of the role of French culture in Canadian history and all that kind of stuff. You missed the captain's rating? Yes. Let's see if I still got it. There you go. This is the captain's ranking. We got Jellicoe on top, then we got Cisco, Picard, Pike, Janeway, Burnham, Saru, Lorca, Freeman, Giorgio, Kelvin Kirk, Archer, Kirk, and then Rios at the bottom. That was what we got. Hopefully that went through. I don't want to go through it all again because we did spend the first half hour going through this. That homeschooling question should be just for Mia. All right. I'll just knock that one off now then. Jellicoe hoodwinked those Cardassians. But also, he had extreme substitute teacher energy, is the thing. All right, the first question we got here is, why is it the only people who seem to be critical enough of Trudeau to protest him on the campaign trail are right-wing conspiracy theorists? Good question. Also, yeah, Trudeau had to leave an event because these same people were throwing actual rocks at him today. So it's escalating. I know there's a criticism of Trudeau from the left, but it feels like the only people who actively go out and protest him or make traction are QAnon or anti-maskers. Like, it feels there should be more people calling him out for buying a pipeline or wanting him hanged for mask mandates. Yeah, you'd think. But, yeah. I wish I had an answer. I imagine you just wanted to commiserate your frustration, Matt. I don't even think you're here. But, you know. But yeah, I think also that there's a bit of a cultivated image here, too. Like, I think that Trudeau is intentionally trying to frame everything. Like, I don't know if maybe there are protests, but Trudeau is very interested in trying to frame that everybody who's opposed to him is basically a conservative or is like a right-wing extremist. He has gone to extreme lengths to try and convince people that it's either him or like basically a Trump-like alternative, you know? And in order to poison the conversation. Like you do. Do I think the Conservatives will win this election? At this point, flip a coin. I think the Conservatives are going to get the most votes. Yes. That's almost guaranteed at this point. But because of how they're distributed, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make government. And that the Liberals still have a higher chance of winning than the Conservatives, but not by much. And if they do win, it's going to be close. Tristan, in your video and a very recent Cold War video on the Japanese Communist movement, there was a mention of reverse strikes where workers kick out their bosses and work on their own. Could this be possible and useful in modern American labor movement? Maybe. The thing about American labor movement is that the U.S. labor movement has had a agonizingly, violent history. And that if you were to do a thing like a Japanese reverse strike was where they basically took over the factory and kicked out all the bosses and continued to work, but for themselves. If that happened in America, they would have highly armed police coming in and like brutalizing people. Canada Pot King, now PPC weirdo, said that Trudeau ought to go down like Mussolini. I know, that guy's an MP in this. We talked about him earlier. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Meow Nyan. We talked about that earlier in the stream, about how a PPC candidate in London basically said that Trudeau should be killed. And he was not kicked out of the PPC for that, but he was told to delete his tweet. And even his like apology was very like backhanded and kind of like, you know, showing that he's a goof. Get the most votes but lose. It's like Bizarro America. Isn't that just seizing the means of production? It could be. It could be. And it did work in Japan because Japan was in a situation where it had a huge labor shortage. So when they did this was sort of like they did it as a way, like the reverse strike was meant to be a way to not cripple Japan's recovery after World War II, but to still try and fight for workers' rights. And it worked in that particular context. I don't know if it would work in the American context. In a realistic scenario, I think the Liberals show minority parliaments so the NDP can have sway on policy. I mean, the NDP doesn't have much sway on policy either way. Like, when it comes to the Liberals and the Conservatives, there's not really not that much different between the two of them. Canada's election thoughts. I mean, I've talked about the election quite a bit over the last few weeks of this stream. I don't know what specifically. I think that, you know, if I were a betting man, I would bet that the Liberals will probably win, but it'll be a minority government. It'll be a squeaker. that they're going to lose seats from their previous election, and that it's going to get to the point where they're going to win the most seats. They're not going to get the most votes because of first past the post, and because their liberal support is so spread out and wide, while conservative and NDP support is focused in certain regions. And we're going to end up in a minority government. It's going to be probably liberal, but but also possibly conservative, or almost equally likely. So it's going to be either Aaron O'Toole as prime minister, or I think that if Trudeau gets another minority government, he's going to resign, and we'll probably end up with someone like Chrystia Freeland as prime minister, who won't be elected. And because she won't be elected, and because it'll be a minority government, and it'll be a very unstable minority government, and the Liberals won't do a coalition with the NDP, it'll result in probably another election in 2023, probably. So that'll probably be what happens. You'll probably end up in a minority government that's even more unstable than the one we were in before. That's going to result in no legislation getting passed, and then another election in 2023. That's my take. If I had any run-ins with anyone involved with the Communist Party, the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada, my activist comrades in Ottawa say that they are often bro-y, dirtbag leftists. I haven't had any direct confrontation with them. I had a call with the Communist Party of Canada people at one point. They I'm trying to remember what we were doing, but I ended up talking with them about something, because I think at one point a long time ago I was going to end up doing another freaking election, or I was going to be doing I was thinking of joining them at one point, I think, is the thing. Do I reckon that Maxime Bernier, the PPC leader, will win his seat back? I don't think so. He lost pretty hard in the last election, and it would, I don't know, the PPC is the PPC's support seems to be very widespread as well, and because they're so low in the polls, they're only at about 5%, I don't see them, I don't think they're going to win a seat. If they win a seat, that is a very dark omen for Canada. Are Canadians getting election fatigue? What happened in the UK between 2016 and 2019? Yeah, probably, because we had election fatigue like that too. There was a period when I was a teenager where we had a lot of elections too. Like from 2006 to 2011, we had I think we had almost an election every single year or every other year. So this will just happen again. Aren't there two different communist parties in Canada? Yes. There's the Marxist-Leninist Party and the Communist Party. The other thing, too, is that in Canada, our provinces and cities and the federal level all have their own schedules for elections, which means that we're having an election in 2021 now, and I guarantee you that... well, by law, it has to. Next year, we're going to have an Ontario election. And at some point, London's going to have a mayoral election. And those are all on their own schedules. So, Canadians vote a lot. We have a lot of elections here. Pretty sure there's a Communist Party of Ontario as well. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. The thing is that a lot of these don't run a candidate in every riding. So sometimes you don't see them, sometimes you do see them. The only federal party that has a candidate in every single riding in Canada is the NDP. Which that says quite a bit. The Liberals didn't even bother to do fly-in candidates in some of the, orange-blue districts. Americans do too, because of midterm elections and Senate Democrats and considering presidential elections. The thing is, America still has all of their elections on the same day. You have your November election. But in Canada, you could theoretically have 3 elections in the same year in one place if things lined up properly. unless it's a runoff election in the United States, all elections have to happen on the first Tuesday of November. But in Canada, they can be called whenever they want to be called. That also means, though, unlike in America, like when you vote in America, it's like this huge sheet. And they vote on everything. Like they vote on like mosquito control officer and coroner and like judges and stuff. Here in Canada, we have a lot more elections, but our election, like we will go in and vote for like one thing. Like when I go in for the election in a couple weeks, it's going to be like vote for like it'll be for who I want to be my MP. That's it. Maybe like I remember when I voted in the Toronto mayoral election, I also had to vote for like school board trustees or something like that, but that's it. So voting is a lot easier to do, I guess, when it actually happens. Hey, Matt, we just answered some of your questions and stuff, so... Could you see the NDP gaining more momentum in the election coming after the one that's about to happen? Possibly. Jagmeet Singh is very popular. He's the most popular party leader in the country. And if the NDP make gains in this election, he will definitely be around for another election cycle. And if Aaron O'Toole loses this election and Justin Trudeau doesn't get a majority government, it could be that both of those leaders resign. And then by the next election, Jagmeet Singh will be the only leader who's still around, because the NDP like to keep their leaders around for longer. While like if a liberal or conservative leader loses a election, it's fairly likely they resign afterwards. Not always, but it is a thing that happens here. How many seats do I think the NDP will get? I don't know, maybe like 20? More than they have now. I think they have about 15, and they're probably going to get up to about 20. So that's a pretty big increase. But it could even be bigger. Who knows? Like, I live in a liberal-leaning riding that very well could vote for the NDP, because it's... Like, it used to be run by a Liberal MP, but she retired, or she's not running for re-election. So now it's an open seat, but... I walk around my riding, and there's like 7 or 8 NDP signs for every other sign, which makes me think that the NDP are probably going to win here, or at least they have a real chance of winning here. And yeah. Anna Marie Paul, the leader of the Green Party. The Green Party is basically, I think, dead after this election. They're going to go from their, 2 to 3 seats down to 0 or 1. And then also, they have now, countrywide, they went from about 10% to about 2% support. I feel like the Green Party's day is done at this point. Can we ever get an NDP government? Closest we got was 2011. It'd be tough, especially with the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party, because they campaign, they have this sort of nominally progressive campaigning. They tend to take a lot of the air out of the sails of a lot of people who would vote NDP. But if the Liberals have a huge major collapse like they had in 2011, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. Do I think the PPC will get a few seats this election? No. No, they're not really. Their votes are not concentrated anywhere. That I don't think they're really going to get a seat anywhere. They don't really have the. I put it very unlikely that the PPC is going to win a seat. If Maxime Bernier wins his seat, maybe, but that's I would still be surprised if that happened. I don't think they're projected to win any seats either. All right. When was the height of neoliberalism? I'd say 1998, the Cold War is over. Clinton and Blair were both in power, and 9/11 is yet to happen. Yeah, I mean, that works. The year 2000, probably be a good one. You know, that kind of weird period. Any strategies to get ABT voters to vote? ABT voters? Do you mean ABC voters? Like anyone but conservatives? Or anyone but Trudeau? But, yeah. Any thoughts on the People's Party? I mean, they were bound to happen in this country. Like Canada, like they across every Western country, there's been a rise in far right, bordering fascist, like nationalist political parties. So, the Conservatives here have not leaned into that. The Conservative Party here has made an intentional decision to not lean into that with. And so, yeah, like it was guaranteed that there was going to be some like far right nationalist party showing up out of nowhere. I don't know how well it's going to do because Canadians are extremely cynical in their voting patterns. Like Canadians are so it's so much more normal here to vote for a party you don't like because you're afraid of another party more than it is to vote for a person you like. To the point where like our democracy in Canada is fundamentally broken. First past the post and sort of the Canadian political culture has resulted in people who very rarely vote for candidates that they actually want to win. And that's why we need electoral reform. But the thing is that that's how liberals win. The liberals win by being everyone's second choice. And every election, all they do is get people afraid enough of the conservatives that they vote for them. That's how liberals do it every time. And yeah, until we get electoral reform, that's not going to change. Did Tristan talk about the Liberal MP for Kitchener Centre sitting down? I think it'd be interesting to see how the race will go with no Liberal candidate. I did not hear about that. I don't even know which one that is. Why is the mainstream media obsessed with making John Roberts seem reasonable? John Roberts is a George Bush appointee and a religious bigot, but he cares about the court looking legitimate. So he's slightly less brazen than the rest of the right wing of the court. Like for say the other day, he said the court should have enjoined the Texas law until they officially ruled to allow it. He does not bear minimum, and the media constantly talk about him like he's some principled conservative of the court. I mean, liberals are always doing that. They did it for John McCain. To them, because they don't really stand on any real principles or any sort of political things, to them, following norms is the only good. Following the rules is the only, like, actual good to them. Because they don't really have any real positions that they sit on. So, why the Liberals have such a weak performance in 2011? Michael Ignatieff was a particularly bad candidate. And, because what happened was that the Conservatives were able to make a pretty successful campaign that Michael Ignatieff basically temporarily came back to Canada because he was teaching at a university in the U.S. So he came back to Canada just to run for Prime Minister. And they were in this whole campaign about just visiting. So the Liberals lost in that sense. Then there was also a massive collapse of the Bloc Québécois in the 2011 election that led to the NDP winning like a shit ton of seats in Quebec. And also, there had just been so many minority elections in a row that a lot of people were just tired of constant, like they had election fatigue. And so a lot of people voted for the Conservatives because they just wanted a majority government. They just wanted a more stable federal government. And so, yeah. Think it'd be worth a while for the NDP to point out the failures and lies of the Liberals? I hope so, because that's basically the election plan for Jagmeet Singh and the NDP this election. This whole election is about how Trudeau talks a big game but never actually does anything. That's like sort of the thing. He was the one with the sexual harassment allegations. Oh yeah, that was the one that like Trudeau was refusing to kick out of the party. So I guess he resigned himself. That makes sense. Elections worry me. I appreciate your commentary a lot. Thanks, Tristan. Oh, thank you, CinemaCon. Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this Canadian election. But, you know, uh, 2 weeks will be the day after the election, so you won't have to hear about it for long, anybody who doesn't care about it. Suppose you're a relatively privileged person. Your response to rising fascism and climate is to say, well, I'm a white guy and I don't live near the coast. I'm just going to live my life, best life possible until things get so bad I can't. Fuck fixing problems. Just focuses on personal happiness as long as possible. Is that responsible selfish? Is that response understandable? Sure. It is understandable and it is selfish. Yes. Correct. A winner is you. What I think of Jack Layton? Really nice guy. I really like. He had a really great personality. Obviously, he was probably the best prime minister Canada never had. That kind of thing. I do sometimes get because the thing is, one of the major contributions he made to the NDP was removing socialism from its title, and was very much a person who was about reeling back the sort of making the NDP more moderate in its positions. And I didn't like that. And also the legacy is left on the NDP is now that there's this sort of Jack Layton ghost that exists in the NDP now, where they think that any sort of getting mad and talking about politics, about all the injustices, the NDP have this really locked in that literally you can't be too angry, you can't be too negative, you have to be positive, you have to smile, you have to be the NDP has this branding of being very happy and positive and families and that kind of stuff, but people are fucking mad right now and society's falling apart and we don't need a kindergarten teacher. We need someone who's fucking pissed. And that sort of ghost of Jack Layton over the NDP has stopped us from doing that. It stopped us from having our Jeremy Corbyn type moment, our Bernie Sanders. We haven't been able to make that leap, There's a small cult personality around Layton. Yeah. There's definitely a cult personality that Jagmeet Singh is building around him. I didn't like Singh until he started calling out people for being racist. Yeah, I definitely I did not vote for Jagmeet Singh. I was a member of I joined the NDP specifically to vote in the leadership race, and I didn't vote for him. He was my last choice on the ranked choice voting, but I've liked him more as he has stayed leader of the party. Yeah. Can you briefly explain why Jimmy Carter, not Reagan, in general is considered the first neoliberal president? Jimmy Carter, in general, is considered... I considered him a neoliberal, I called him a neoliberal in the Discord, and people were incredulous, saying that they assumed everyone before Reagan was a New Dealer. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of he was kind of a proto-neoliberal. He wouldn't super buy into its position, but essentially the Democrats in America essentially started abandoning labor after the 1974 election. Sorry, not 1974, 1972. They had the election in 1972. They lost pretty hard to Richard Nixon, and they really didn't want to do that again. So they thought that it was because they went too far to the left. Because George McGovern, I think it was, who they chose. The lesson they took away with that is that he went too far left. And the 1970s, neoliberalism was starting to take off in the UK with Margaret Thatcher and stuff, and so they were playing around with different ideas. But the reason why people consider Ronald Reagan the first real neoliberal president is because he was more Jimmy Carter played with some neoliberal type ideas, but Ronald Reagan was a neoliberal ideologue. He was out front about it, and he made a big deal about making that part of his identity. And Jimmy Carter was only a one-term president, so he didn't really get to do a whole lot anyway. So yeah. What do we got here? Should you show solidarity with strike actions even if you think they're ill thought out and likely to be ineffective? I'm really mad at particular people for not taking part in the Twitch hate raid strike. But other people in the Step Back Discord were like, who cares? It's never going to achieve anything anyway. I mean, that specific situation was like, it's not hard to not stream, you know? Like, even if it's like, yeah, it's not going to like change anything, as a sign of solidarity with people, it's easy as fuck to just not stream for a day. It really is. So yeah. But, I mean, I like to show solidarity with any action. I'm a, what's it called? I'm an anarchist. I'm a sucker for lost causes. So yeah, I will try and fight with solidarity for any sort of movement, even if it's not likely to win. The big start of neoliberalism started with Barry Goldwater. Yes, that's true. Barry Goldwater proposed basically what would become neoliberalism, although neoliberalism hadn't really really hadn't been written, hadn't really been fleshed out by the economists yet at that point. But he did, a lot of what he said was basically the prototype of like a new return to classical conservatism and stuff like that. But then he lost super hard. And the idea, like the sort of like neoclassical conservative movement, got pushed back for a while. And the Republican Party picked a sort of like liberal Democrat with Richard Nixon. So, yeah, it took the backswing for quite a while. But then, yeah, Ronald Reagan sort of when that came back. And it sort of has dominated politics ever since. Alrighty. Well, that's all the questions. I didn't have as much to do this week with all this stuff, so I just, did a couple things. But we only got about 15 minutes left of the stream anyway, so we could just vibe for the rest of it. How's that sound? Didn't neoliberalism start in the 1950s? I don't think so. Why would you say the 1950s? Neoliberalism started as if you want to really get into it, like what would become the neoliberal ideology sort of started as a backlash against the New Deal, which was back in the 1930s. And the only thing though is that it was just very unpopular and nobody took it very seriously because New Deal economics was working so well. Then it didn't really pick up until the Chicago boys started really trying an intentional project to try and push for their ideology in public discourse. Which was intentionally done by starting organizations and seeding publications and all that kind of stuff. I mean the economic theory, not the political movement. Yeah, I think that what neoliberalism has been around since, in many ways, neoliberalism is just the building on the conservative backlash against the sort of interventions that people made to for the Great Depression and World War II and stuff. After World War II, a bunch of countries got social democratic programs, and they were the ones who were opposed to it. Did I watch Cypher's video on neoliberalism, and if so, what did you think of it? I didn't see it. Really hate when people call Woodrow Wilson a progressive because he was a lot more conservative even though he sounded progressive. Yeah. He was, in many ways, he did the ultimate liberal thing, which is that he did just enough socially progressive stuff to get a few people in the sort of progressive movement to join up with him, and then just sort of went from there. Trying to remember, Woodrow Wilson was like the election that like Woodrow Wilson got elected in the election of 1912, and the election of 1912 was when the Socialist Party started running a candidate, or the Socialist Party had its high watermark of its success, getting about 1% of the popular vote or something like that. And then also, that was the election where the Bull Moose Party, so basically the liberal, sort of like the progressive faction of the Republicans, broke off from the party because of basically because, what's his name? Teddy Roosevelt really didn't like the politics of Taft. So he broke off and made his own Bull Moose Party, and basically split the Republican vote in half. It's sort of like the beginning of the Republicans turning into the Conservative Party of America. And then, yeah, Woodrow Wilson cleaned up because of that split vote. And by his second election, maybe, a lot of those like progressive Republicans had become Democrats by that point. But Woodrow Wilson did a lot of shitty things. Like, he resegregated the federal government, as you said. He did a lot of very pointless interventions. Like, he's probably, like, he reminds me a lot of George Bush Jr., you know? Like, a lot of the, like, thinking America should be intervening in other countries to build democracy and stuff like that, and failing miserably. Like, he invaded Mexico twice. He occupied Haiti. He occupied the Dominican. He got America involved in the First World War. Like, all those, like, kind of, like, foreign interventions that probably didn't need to happen. And because he had this sort of, like, ideological imperialism of the United States. Yeah. And also, keep in mind, like, Democrats from, like, those periods are... It's weird. It's because like, the thing is that the Democratic Party was this weird coalition in the early 20th century. This would become more of a thing later. But, like, the Democrats were this weird mix. Like, in the North, Democrats were primarily, like, minorities and immigrant groups. I don't think... no black groups yet in the North. I think that was a little bit later. I think it was, like, more in the 20s and 30s. But, like, groups like German immigrants, Italian immigrants, Jewish immigrants, they all were very heavily into democratic politics in the North. And in the South, it was, like, straight up white supremacists and stuff like that. So they were playing a very, like, class-based politics of, like, you know, the everyman in the South, of, like, you know, supporting white supremacy and stuff like that, while using a more, like, you know, party bosses and, like, you know, neighborhood-based, like, treating and stuff like that in the North. Because, like, oh my god, yeah. Politics also in those days were just, like, fanatically corrupt. Like, it just absolutely just nuts. People say he stood up for women's rights and he didn't. No. I mean, he didn't get out of the way of women getting the vote, I guess. So yeah. The other thing too is it's hard to picture what Woodrow Wilson believed, because Woodrow Wilson was he never wrote memoirs. So we don't really have a historical record of what Woodrow Wilson was thinking in a lot of his choices. So a lot of historians have been spending a lot of time trying to figure out what it is that Woodrow Wilson actually believed, because he was pretty quixotic. You know, he did a lot of things that are not very ideologically consistent. And because he had a stroke in the last year of his presidency, he never got to write about his about what he thought. Like, I read this book when I was an undergrad called Uses of Force, which is sort of this sort of like analysis of Woodrow Wilson's foreign policy and like what he like trying to piece together by the choices he made what kind of foreign policy he had. He was a lost cause historian, though. Yeah, that's true. But also, like most historians were at that point, they were wrong, obviously. But yeah, there were a lot of lost cause historians back then, so it's not the weirdest thing in the world for him to be that. I'm not trying to defend Woodrow Wilson, by the way. I'm not. Like, I'm trying to remember what because he's considered he is considered like one of the progressive presidents. That is true. But let's see what he did that would have caused that. Let's see. His new freedom domestic agenda. So let's see what that is. Let's see. So this is the new freedom agenda is what he's known for. Tariff reform, which was like a thing for farmers. Business reform that established the clause of the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1914, which established the Federal Trade Commission to investigate and halt unfair and illegal business practices by issuing cease and desist orders, and the Clayton Antitrust Act. And banking reform by creating the Federal Reserve System. Okay. So, yeah, he passed a shit ton of laws that had to do with, like, the 8-hour workday and, like, workman's comp and, like, leave of absence with will for employees. Like, yeah, there's a lot of laws here that are, like, Workers' Rights Act. And when they're talking about the Progressive Era, they're typically talking about the labor movement. So that makes sense. So, yeah, he was a Democrat before, what's it called? Before the 1970s or 1980s. So he had a very different, whatever. Feel like you're not responding to my questions about Mike because you think it's like drama batting or whatever. For me to ask you to comment on bad stuff people do, you're on good terms with do. I mean, I don't really know Mike from PA is the main thing. You're trying to get me to make it. First of all, I don't want to start shit with anybody because that's not really my style. And I don't really like petty, like, gossip and stuff. And at the same time, like, I don't really know, like, I don't follow the drama. So I don't know what's going on with Mike from PA. I don't know what's going on with any of that stuff. That's it. That progressive agenda wasn't Wilson, though. He was the pre-Red Scare socialist labor grassroots push. Oh, yeah, sure. That's true of every president. Like, that's the thing is, like, a lot of times the hard work of activists at the time, the president who is reigning in that period is the one who takes takes credit for it, So yeah, that's an unfortunate fact. Has the YouTube commentary committee been more than good YouTubers as a whole? YouTube commentary committee been more than good for YouTube as a whole? I mean, I guess YouTube's no longer a like fucking cesspit of right-wing grifters, so that's nice. I mean, it still is, but it's less than it was. Am I going to stream on election night? Probably not. It's not a night that I normally stream, and election returns aren't like the most interesting thing in the world. I don't think that you guys think it's going to be fun, but it's not really going to be fun. You keep hosting on your Twitch a lot lately, so maybe you should know what he says. Oh, do I have him on my host list or something? Because that's all automated, so I can just remove him from that. That's easy enough to do. But, you know, it's also maybe you should, like, not tell me what to do all the time, but that's fine. I have a lot of people on my auto host list, and I don't even know who half of them are anymore, so I can just get rid of that. Yeah. I still got Peter Coffin on here, for Christ's sake. Central Committee, there we go. There you go. There you go. No more hosting. No more tiers. No more 255 tiers. How left-wing was RFK as far as the U.S. spectrum is concerned? He was a socially progressive leader. He wasn't, like, super economically progressive. I would probably say that, what's-his-face, McCarthy was more, like... Like, the thing is that during the primaries that he was in, RFK was more of, like, the liberal progressive who was really popular with, like, students and, like, you know, people of various, like... you know, some racial minority groups, and then like McCarthy was really popular with like unions and like other like immigrant groups. Like he was way more like you know, economics wise progressive. And then when RFK was shot by Sirhan, who I think has actually been like is he like getting probation or something? I can't remember. But yeah, then McCarthy kind of took his votes. I'm the boss of you, and I demand you keep being awesome. Well, thank you. We'll do that. How left-wing was RFK as far as the U.S. spectrum is concerned? So I would say that as far as the U.S. spectrum was concerned back then, he was reasonably progressive. He was probably more progressive than his brother. As far as, like, compared to LBJ, I mean, when it comes to the war, he was definitely more progressive. I don't know what he would have done on, like, racial justice stuff or anything like that, but that would have been his, like, major thing, is, like, desegregation and stuff like that. He was really into that stuff. But that wasn't, like, you know, that was pretty progressive for that time. Way more progressive for today than then. All right. He would have lost to Nixon. Nixon rode the white backlash hard. LBJ was much more left-wing than RFK. Maybe. Though the thing is, what's his name? Fucking... The problem is that also the Democrats had a fucking... They fell apart because what's-his-face was... became the candidate despite the fact like he lost the primary. He had less what's it called? The party bosses ignored the results of the primaries and gave the leadership gave the presidential ticket to frickin' not Hoover. That's the other guy. I can't remember what the guy's name was. Hubert Humphrey. They shoved Hubert Humphrey onto the people, and yeah. The Democrats might have been able to ride like a victory of all those young progressive baby boomers who were invested in McCarthy or in Kennedy, but instead they decided to just go with they decided to just push Hubert Humphrey on everybody, and nobody wanted to vote for him because he was just LBJ's vice president and was just going to continue doing LBJ's work, which was continuing the Vietnam War. So, LBJ was more popular. LBJ had a more, like, he had his whole, like, Great Society program, which I feel like was, like, this very ambitious thing that he really wanted to do. But Vietnam sort of, like, his refusal to lose in Vietnam sort of always weighed him down. Do you think that Truman would have done well if he ran for a second term and won? For perspective, he'd be president until 1957 in that case. I don't know. He barely won the election that he did win. Wasn't LBJ's domestic policy kind of awesome? Yeah, I mean, like, the Great Society, like, he's the reason why America has Medicare and Medicaid and welfare and, like, all that kind of stuff. LBJ is on audio tape being pulled very much against his will into signing the Civil Rights Act. Really? Yeah, I mean, that would be surprising. It wouldn't be surprising. Oh, I just realized it is 9 o'clock, so let's raid somebody. Raid somebody. Let's raid Lumi. Lumi's always good value. There is definitely some sign that LBJ was just a politician in many ways, writing what he thought was popular, but there is some signs that he also had some legit like motivations for the Great Society. The Great Society was the program he really wanted to do. Anyways, I'm going to do Vosh. Yeah, fuck that guy. Never rating Vosh. Guy's the fucking pseudo-intellectual. All right, we're going to raid Lumi because Lumi rules. So let's do that. Everybody, be good. I'll be back. What's it called? Be good to yourselves. Take care of yourselves and each other. I'm going to be back on Thursday, so take care.